Thank you for being real patient, folks. There's been one or two hiccups with just getting the streaming keys set up through OBS. We've got that resolved now. We're at the end of year again. This year has been a mix of eras ending and some beginning anew, as well as highlighting this year's selection of the box office. We are also taking a look at our picks of movie highlights from the last 9 years before heading into this year's review. For the 9th consecutive year, Real Features presents the end of year review panel. Hello everyone, I'm MJ Knight, the voice of Nightwatch, the face of Real Features, one of the co-creators of Roll Down Rebound, because only Ricardo will never let me forget it, and one of the co-hosts of SKL. Joining me for his third end-of-year appearance is the mindful and zenful Cyber Raiden.
What up?
Later this evening, returning for her third appearance, the snarky, cute Win the Rogue. Marking her third presidential appearance, the First Lady of Awesome, Lydia.
How's it going, guys? Let's ring out this decade with a bang.
And marking his 6th appearance, the distinguished sophistication of Kaiju Noir.
Hello, people of the internet.
Now, as everyone pretty much knows the score that we do for these things, there's pretty much a 10 movie plus shortlist, because there have been 1 or 2 movies that have been asked to be put to add to the list, and I have accommodated that. The movies that will be up for selection this year will be as follows. Undeniably, Avengers Endgame, Shazam, Alita Battle Angel, Bumblebee, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Batman vs. the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Spider-Man Far From Home, or as far as Random DCE is concerned, Spider-Man Far From Watchable. His words, go consult him about it. We'll do it in January after he comes out from his hibernation.
I remember my friend Andrew has another one. Well, he always calls it Spider-Man Far From Good.
Ouch.
Ooh.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Joker, and It, Chapter 2. But in order to honor the present, we must first honor the past. And my 2 selections to cover 2010 will be Let Me In and Toy Story 3. Toy Story 3. Had there not been a 4th entry into the series, this would have been the best way to send the toys off, and I think it had a heartwarming script and the cast turning out a great performance, with even the actor who played Andy in the original returning to say goodbye to the character. This movie pulled on the heartstrings of those that had grown up with the original and its sequel in 1999, and was likely to be just as emotional for them as it was for the characters. And as for Let Me In, haunting, beautifully written, well-chosen cast. This movie really encompasses the pain and loneliness of adolescence thrown in with some vampires. Chloe Moretz and Cody Smith-McPhee carry this movie on their backs and show their talent at such a young age. Worth a look if you're open to something different. Lids, did you have any movies from 2010 to go through?
Sadly, no. It's like I couldn't come up with anything off the top of my head, but I will acknowledge that the 2010s was it felt like a bit of a resurgence of like horror or like at least thriller-based movies. Like there are a lot of films that you can point out off the top of your head that created basically new horror icons. Like let's say the resurgence of Pennywise from It, with Bill Skarsgård playing the role of bringing new life to the role of Pennywise, because we all remember Tim Curry's performance and how campy it was.
Smashing.
Yes. But yeah, there are other icons that such as if anybody's ever seen The Babadook, you need to see The Babadook because it's freaking scary as hell. Just again, I'm a very big horror fan. I do love horror movies, but I think for me, a lot of the movies that shaped this decade for me are the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. Some are good in quality, some are not. Captain Marvel. Sorry, that was caught in my throat for a second. But yeah, this decade has been shaped a lot by like film franchises and as much as people like to say that superhero movies are kind of suffering a fatigue, the box office say different. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Kaiju, did you have any movies from 2010 that you wanted to go through?
The only movie I have here is Toy Story 3, and since you pretty much said everything how I felt about it, I'll be as brief as possible.
Sure.
Basically, I felt like 2010 was a very important year for me, as that was the year where I was graduating high school and eventually moving on to college. And coincidentally, that was exactly what the main protagonist, Andy, was going through. So I definitely felt like a huge connection with the movie and its idea of moving on with the next stage of your life, learning to let go of the past, and at the same time, just being able to be very thankful for what is important in life. And it was definitely the kind of movie that I really needed back in 2010 personally, where the whole idea of change is something that is inevitable and that is always going to happen. And it's a natural part of life. The movie itself that was a brilliant send off for these characters. And while this year did give us Toy Story 4, I feel like, just to briefly touch on that, Toy Story 4 was an adequate epilogue chapter. It was a great epilogue chapter, but Toy Story 3 will always be the definitive ending, and it's like a definitive example of how to properly end a story. The characters were great; they were wonderful. I love the approach to the sort of prison break approach that they went with this premise. And with the preschool setting, another great setting to expect toys to interact with each other. It was a very emotional movie. You can bet I was there. I was crying in the theater. I was bawling my eyes out during that entire sequence. And overall, it's a movie that has aged like fine wine, and it was the perfect way to end off the series, and a equally wonderful way to start off the decade.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that that sentiment as well.